everybody. We're excited to jump in. We're going to be talking about post-purchase today. To do that, we've got Julian coming from Parcel Lab. Julian, thanks so much for joining. Tell us a little
Absolutely.
about yourself and Parcel Lab.
Hi, yeah, my name is Julian, and as you will be able to tell from my accent, I'm originally German, living in New York City now. We started with Parcel Lab roughly 10 years ago, and we help retailers primarily in the enterprise space in both Europe and North America with what we call post-purchase experience. So that includes all your order tracking, proactive communications, and returns.
I love it. I love it. Well, the accent you barely tell. You've been in the U.S. a long time, pretty long.
Yeah, a few years, but most people can still tell. Whereas my wife, people assume she's American, but her English is just way better than mine.
Well, hopefully it's not too much of a competition, but you're coming through loud and clear.
Very good.
Good thing we don't have to do. We were saying pre-show. I spent a little time in Germany, but I'm glad we're not doing this in German because I'll tell you what. 20 years ago, I felt like I could do a little damage, but right
Yeah,
now I think it's about ein
trust
bisschen.
me, you
About
probably
all.
couldn't. Probably couldn't also then back then.
Yeah,
That's all
that's
right.
right. That's so true, man.
Yeah.
That is so true. I thought I could, but I know I can't. Let's dive into the topic of post-purchase. So why do you feel like this is often such an overlooked topic? It seems like often this becomes an overlooked topic. I'm curious as why you might think that.
It's super. What I find super interesting about this is how overlooked has changed, right? Or when I
Yeah.
really think back 10 years ago, overlooked meant people didn't even have this on their radar,
That's
right? I
fair.
think
Yeah.
today they got it on their radar, but sometimes a little bit unclear on how
Mm.
should you most effectively tackle this, right? So
Yeah.
you have fuzzy ownership. It's not really clear who's even in charge of this. Is it a customer service initiative where you try to reduce customer WISMO inquiries?
Yep.
Is it a marketing in terms of loyalty and customer marketing initiative? Is it with logistics who actually can influence how quickly something is fulfilled and delivered? And all of this makes it a bit, yeah, it's a little bit stuck in the middle in a way, right? So I
Yeah.
think when it's overlooked today, it's more unclear responsibilities. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, well, if it's a bit unclear, you allocate your budget where it's a bit more clear, right? So you maybe go in acquisition and optimize a little bit more your SEO, and then you got your now AI engine optimization stuff, right? So
Yep.
there's plenty of stuff to do, which is like a bit more clear cut. And I think this overall then leads to post-purchase being overlooked.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I like that reframe because it is on more people's radar, but it is a
Yeah.
little vague as to maybe the best way to do it.
Hmm.
I want to get into some of that, but there's certainly a cost with some of these problems, and I'm curious if your take on, what's this cost of a bad post-purchase experience? How do you guys help companies kind of think through that, the pros and cons there?
Yeah. So, and I think that's the interesting part about the overlook, right? Because it's so obvious
Mm,
where the costs lie, right? The first one is pretty straightforward. Wismo and where's my return inquiries,
totally.
right? 40% of all tickets usually are somewhere in this realm and then take multiple minutes to answer for a customer service, right? Super expensive, right? I mean, you guys in customer know exactly
Yeah, yeah,
how this is
100%.
handled, right? You have really, I mean, we like to say revenue walks out the door, right? You
Yeah.
spend so much in SEO and conversion and marketing and ads and all that stuff to get a customer to convert and actually purchase something. And then basically you don't really re-engage with them, right?
Yeah.
And especially this post-purchase phase is such a good time to re-engage. And we see regularly that a percent of all customers will immediately come back and reconvert if
Mm,
you communicate effectively with them, right? And
yeah.
then, of course, I think last but not least is we always try to frame it from a customer repurchase velocity kind of
Yeah.
aspect. So, how do you quickly build trust? Not everybody's Amazon, right? Not everybody can offer nationwide 2-day fulfillment.
Yeah.
So, how do you still create a certain level of trust with with your customers so they come back often and
Yeah.
hopefully happily, right?
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think that when you're competing with in a world where Amazon is, it's always somehow you got to build trust. I mean, that
Yep.
post-purchase experience and the 2-day shipping, I know comes up a decent amount.
Yeah, yeah,
I know a
absolutely,
couple,
right.
I
Absolutely.
know a
Yeah.
couple brands fighting around some of those types of things, but you got to
Yeah.
do it. I know brands successfully do it. Let's get into some of the meat. I mean, you guys obviously are experts, I think, at this post-purchase experience. I'm curious how you guys, with some of the products you have, but also just generally help reduce that support volume and increase loyalty as we think about kind of post-purchase.
Yeah, I think the super interesting part is, I mean, we from a product offering try to keep it really flexible, right?
Yeah.
And really offer brands the opportunity to shine. And this is like the key point of the whole idea on post-purchase. You don't really want something out of the box. You need to think about
Mhm.
how can I, as brand XYZ, communicate most effectively with my customers, right?
Yeah.
In IKEA, example I really like is IKEA,
Yeah.
where they do not optimize on your next purchase like straight away, right? So they don't want you to actually, I mean, you can if you want to, right? Nobody would be opposed to this. But let's say I'm buying my couch here at IKEA, right? They don't want me to buy like 5 additional pillows straight away. I mean,
Mm.
of course, if I can, right? But I don't have, this is not what they're optimizing for.
Yeah.
They're optimizing for this experience was good. I enjoyed getting this despite being at a furniture delivery, etc. So next time I'm moving house, as I just did, right? And now I'm refurnishing my living room. Then I think again, okay, if I want to get this done quickly and conveniently, I'll go back to IKEA, right? So they have a completely different target. Another good example I really like is HEXCLAD. I mean, we all know HEXCLAD, right? Shout out to Michael here. He's doing
Yeah.
doing a great job, of course, right?
That's
But
right.
I think how they position this really, really well is putting like the customer experience at the center,
They
right?
do.
I
They
mean, their
do.
kitchenware is affordable, but also not cheap, right? So I
Yeah.
think it's a fair price, but they know this. They want their customers to come back, and how do you do this? By excellent customer service. So it's a
Yeah.
completely different approach than. I mean, we also work with fast fashion retailers like an H&M. And frankly, H&M, they want you to reconvert as quickly as possible because they actually probably need on average 2 to 3 purchases for you to even break even, right? So they
Yeah.
have a different approach. And I think this is the really interesting part. How do you, as a brand, figure out what's my priority? What do I really need to optimize for? And then, of course, we at Parcel Lab like to partner and support with this,
Yeah.
really to challenge the ideas and then offer a infrastructure like a platform where you can make sure these experiences are as on brand and personalized as possible.
Yeah. I love some of those examples. I wonder if you, doesn't have to be those, but I think a lot of people are, as we heard from the audience, sometimes they feel alone. They're so overwhelmed by all the changes, AI and all this automation coming. But, as you look at some of these brands, is there anything that jumps out to you that you think could help this group or this audience, things that they're doing in this post-purchase world to kind of optimize, or some of the creative ideas you're seeing some of your companies do to really start to differentiate on the customer experience? I loved where you were going with HEXCLAD.
Yeah.
Any kind of ideas come to mind?
I think one very good example, and to not only bring up customers of ours, right? What I really like is what Adidas is doing, or as we Germans actually call it, Adidas. But that's a story for another time.
Conversation for another time. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So what they do, and I find this very interesting. At some point, Adidas and Nike basically went to this competition of who gets the most loyalty from
Mm.
runners primarily, right? They bought their runners apps and like local run clubs and all of this stuff. And what I found incredibly interesting is when Adidas revamped their post-purchase experience, every single email in the header has your current loyalty member status, your points as a progress
Oh.
bar
Mm.
tied right in there, right? So they figured out this is our strategic priority. So everything we do, we tie into this down to post-purchase.
Wow.
And I think that's an amazing idea, right?
Yeah,
I think
cool.
what brands don't do today, when you're thinking about post-purchase, just go on your homepage, right? Like on the landing page of the shop and pick the most important message and tie this into post-purchase. Because
Mm.
post-purchase, people are engaged, they actually read. This is such a good time to reach out and
Yeah.
basically connect and position this. I think that's really what how retailers should be thinking about
Yeah.
this, right?
It feels like there is that honeymoon period where, you can really have some fun interaction in that
Yeah.
post-purchase experience.
Yeah.
A lot of
Honeymoon
people.
period is actually a good name for it. Yeah, exactly. Right. Everybody's so dreamy. Oh, we'll be getting my whole new stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
whatever it
exactly.
might be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I love the Adidas. That's a great. Okay, that's a really great example. So that's a one way they really tied loyalty to almost
Exactly.
everything they do.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have one more up your sleeve? Now I'm like, oh shoot, that was a good one. Any other one that comes to your
I
mind?
mean, I got tons of great examples. I think maybe I'll try to keep it short. Two. I give you two examples. Okay. So
Okay,
the
cool.
first one is Bose. So what Bose realized also, you order your $500 headphones or something, right? And a key part of this experience will be how's the setup, right? So you unbox it, and now they tell you, oh, you need to download this app and do this and that, right? For even for home surround systems, now you need to like measure your room and stuff. Annoying, right? So
Yeah.
why don't you, while the items are being delivered, tell customers already, hey, how about you already install the app so you're ready to go? How about you do this and that already? This will be how your setup process will be looking like, right? And this really helps them give customers a much better unboxing experience, yeah, through
Mm,
emails. I think that's a great example. And then my other one is Farfetch. I'm not actually a regular shopper at Farfetch. They do this luxury stuff, right? So I
I know.
can't afford that.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you're in this clientele and they got customers who have an average order value per month of like 50 grand and up, right?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so they do super heavy segmentation, right? So they look at first-time buyers, they look at repeat customers, they look at their VIP customers. VIP customers, if there's an issue on customs or rerouting or something, this goes into their white glove priority queue, and somebody calls them up and helps them resolve that issue, right? And I find this interesting because it's such an obvious idea that really made me think of, hey, every retailer actually should have at least two flows, one for first-time customers and one for repeat customers. Because
Yeah.
the first time you order somewhere, you're like, who's the carrier? How long does it take? What are the
Yeah.
steps? Do you need 5 days in the warehouse or not? How does the box look like? Like these completely trivial stuff that you as a retailer never think about again because you
Yeah.
know all of this, right? But your customers have no clue. And I think that's a super
Absolutely.
interesting learning you can take away from that.
Yeah, look, those are some great examples. If we had longer, I'd maybe keep bugging you, but I appreciate the tactical. I mean, again, I think so many people, so much change going on, and people are having to find different ways to differentiate, obviously, with
Yeah.
so much of the change. So I appreciate the quick tip or tricks. As we wrap here, maybe summarize or, anything you'd want to leave with the audience as we kind of close here today, Julian.
Yeah, I think a good leave behind is always like one thing you can do today, right? You don't need to buy any tools, you don't need to do anything. But I think what's really good exercise for any retailer is to look at the existing order and dispatch confirmation and try to use fresh eyes and look at it from the perspective of a first-time customer.
Mm,
Right? What are the three top questions? And then in the bottom, make a little red box or blue box or something that's on brand where I just explained these very first step. It's not like super massive, but I'm 99% sure everybody will already see a 5% drop in Wismo just by answering obvious questions
wow.
at this point in time.
Wow, I love it. That's super practical. I think that's what a lot of people are looking for because, yeah, a lot of changes obviously coming down the pipe. So,
Yep.
Julie, really fun talk track. I appreciated the time for the audience. Have a fantastic rest of your day.